Version 3.0 of our scriptable text adventure engine provides the user with the ability to set item requirements for transitions and to use items on those transitions when playing. The player now has health and score properties which allow the user to define endgame scenarios via embedding scripts into desired events. With these additions, we now believe the author has the ability to create a well-rounded playable game. This cycle's intent focused on implementing requirements for transitions and the use of items. As of now, the only purpose for using items is to clear a block transition. We decided that after those two tasks were completed, we could then easily define player progression and endgame scenarios through a combination of health, score, and scripting. Once finished with these features, we will implement a full help menu and transition into our first deployment phase.
The major focus this cycle was delivering the finished product to the user. We accomplished this by putting the game engine on PyPI using the Wheel and Twine libraries. Wheel is a package used to create setup tools to help package the engine to be deployed, while Twine is a package used to upload packages to PyPI. While on PyPI, the project can then be downloaded through pip. To set up the package to be put on PyPI, certain requirements are needed. A setup.py, which contains vital information such as the GitHub URL, classifications for the package, author email, etc. A license for the public distribution is also needed. For our package, we use the MIT license for distribution. A readme.txt is also needed, which we use to describe important details and commands needed to run the engine, along with a download link for the test game.
We have implemented the basics for using items. This includes the ability to use an item from the inventory on a transition that may require it, such as using a pickaxe on a path that has a rock blocking it. We've extended the scripting capability to include the use item event and to allow for dynamic updates of the world. An example could be adding a new area or transition to the world when the user uses an item. This allows for customizable, complex interaction between the game and the user. With embedded scripting being complete, the user can now define any creative endgame scenario through a script and bind it to any event in the world. This is demonstrated in our example world.
In the last cycle, we ran into problems with our design sequentially and implement simultaneously strategy. Simply put, even though something is designed and well thought out, the implementation may actually turn out different from the design due to unforeseen obstacles. So basing one design off another could lead to implementation issues. We decided to go with the approach of completely designing and implementing item use before starting endgame and progression, so that going into endgame and progression, we would know exactly how the use item feature works. Following both features, we plan to create a full help menu and to deploy this version of our engine as we believe it has the necessary features needed.
John here. I will now be taking you through the final design and the demo.
John here. So here we have the use item design document. It's the main feature that we focused on this cycle, which allowed us to give the user the ability to create a well-rounded playable game and create endgame scenarios and all that. So the transition class has some new properties, requirements, just an array of items that the transition requires in order to be cleared. On open scripts, it's just some scripts to be ran when the transition is no longer blocked. An open description, this description will be displayed when the transition is cleared and was once blocked. The author can define that. Item class has some new properties, on use, on success, on failure, all messages just for those events, on failure and on success regarding picking up the item. Same thing with the scripts. On those events, we have some scripts that you can embed now into those events which will be executed. We have an extension to the move player logic, just because we have to check to see if the transition is blocked or not. And then we have the logic for the use item. I won't get too in the weeds there, it just checks to see if the player has the item and some more checks before it can use the item, and then it updates the transition. And then we have the use item tests. They're not too extreme, but they're exhaustive enough to the point where we think that our engine is deployable. So now we can move on to the demo. So here's our import statement. We've successfully put our engine up onto pip, so now we're able to import directly from the package index, install directly from the package index, and then import our packages. Following that, we have some scripts. This script is for when the user falls out of the waterfall, take some health from them. If they fall out twice, they'll die. A script for when the user places a pie on the pedestal, which will move the user to the endgame area where they will be able to pick up a necklace, and then the endgame script will be executed, interacting with them. So then we have some requirements that are being set for the path, the cavern, and the pedestal. And we have some on-use scripts that are being set for the ladder. So without getting too far into the weeds though, we can run this, and I will load my game. I've already started playing it just to save some time. So if we look, we are in the woods, so we can use the cavern. And we'll just use the waterfall. I'll look again, we could use the waterfall. And we can see that we lost 50 health, but we have the ladder in our inventory. I can show you that. So we can use the ladder on the waterfall, and then we can go up the waterfall. And you can see we got 10 scores, so we can say score, 10 points, health, 50 health. In our inventory we have this pie. If we look at the pedestal, so we can use the pie on the pedestal. And now the game has put us into a new area through a script. The script being when you use the pie, it moves the player to this new area called Treasure Beach, and it's the end game area. So that's just an example of being able to dynamically update the world. You could move the player using a script, and so now we can look, and we have this necklace, so we can take the necklace, which starts another script where it interacts with the user, and you can see, do we wish to escape this reality? Like, you could say no, and you'd be stuck here forever, theoretically. Or you can say yes, and you beat the game. So free at last. So that's what we have right now for our demo game, and we'll move on to Jeremy with the tests.
So Jeremy here. Currently on screen we have the test code, or the test file that we use to test different things, such as like the inventory class and the move player class and things like that. A couple examples we have are including a test showing to attempt to use an item on a non-existing transition, and another example being a test showing to attempt to move a player through a clear transition. And while we run the tests, we get the expected output of each test. Like for example, attempting to use an item on a transition that does not exist. The expected error message is there's no river, because there is no river.